Hey everyone, I'm going to tell you today about one of my own synths. This is a Korg PE-1000. They were made by Korg in 1976 for about 3 years. So it's a synth that's about 45, 46 years old. I first encountered them about 5 years ago and I just loved the sound. So I've been looking for one ever since. They're not extremely rare, they're not extremely expensive, but it's rare to find one in such nice condition. I found this one about 2 weeks ago here in Paris, and it's in really spectacular condition. It came with the lid of the case. You can see it's built into its case here, like lots of old organs and synths were. It even comes with a little key to the lock, and the interior of the case is beautiful. And it's got its original foot pedal. So why do I love this synth so much? It's because it's very idiosyncratic. It has a lot of things, a lot of functions on it that modern synths don't have, not because they can't, but just because these days things are done slightly differently. And that means there are many ways to make this late 70s murky, woozy, quite brittle and sharp sound. And if you're looking for something that sounds like the soundtrack to a cheap horror film from 1979, this for me really does it perfectly. It is completely polyphonic, by which I mean you can play every single note at once on the keyboard and they will all sound, because they all have their own oscillator. It has 62 oscillators, one for each note on the keyboard. All modern synths have is 2 oscillators or 5 oscillators or 8 oscillators or even 16, and they are assigned to the keys that you play. So you can play maybe 4 notes over here on the left hand, 4 notes on the right, and that will use all the oscillators. The technology required to assign those oscillators to the notes you play, what's called divide down technology, wasn't available in 1976 when Korg designed this synth. They wanted it to be polyphonic. Everyone at the time was trying to create polyphonic synths. Korg had made one duophonic synth before this, a synth that you could play 2 notes at once. They wanted to make a polyphonic synth, and the only way they could figure out how to do it was to give it 62 oscillators. Highly unusual, and you'll see I can play every note on this keyboard at once. Of course, you do not want to do that. No one ever needs to do that. It's not really necessarily a feature, it's just more a quirk of the design. That's one unusual thing about the synth. The other thing is some of the controls. You'll see they don't really work like controls on a modern synth. So let's go through them. Starting over here on the left, you've got volume and tune, very simple. Over here you have the traveler section, which is what Korg called its filters. At the top here is a low pass filter. Here is the resonance for that filter, called a peak. Then you have a control called soft, which really dampens some of the higher frequencies. Useful when you're trying to get bass sounds out of this synth because it doesn't have a lot of low end. It's a string machine really, and it's built for the high end. So if you listen, there's not a lot of low end, even with the high pass filter all the way down. But by turning up this soft control, you'll start to find a bit more low end. Then you have a high pass filter here, which works in tandem with the low pass filter. When you try to move them beyond each other, they're notched together, so that creates a band pass filter. The high pass filter also has a resonance and something called expand, which seems to round off some of the higher frequencies as well. Over here we have an envelope with 3 stages, attack, decay, sustain. But as you'll see, they're not really like an attack, decay and sustain on a modern synth. First, the attack. I love it's got a little click there to turn it off. You see, even with the attack all the way up to 10, it's only about a half-second attack. if that. The decay is actually kind of like a sustain with a bit of decay in it as well. It actually raises the sustain too. And the sustain is a release, so all the way down. I have a bit of reverb on this. Turn the sustain up. Then you have a way to change the waveforms of the oscillators. You have a sawtooth. Then you have 3 types of pulse at varying widths, a square. Then you have a chorus. Here, the chorus is actually pulse width modulation. You can hear, if we go up here to pulse, there's no pulse width modulation, but here, here you have a section where you can select 7 presets or the control function. Control is what we've been using so far. Control just means all of these dials affect the sound. When you select some of these presets, this traveler section will still apply, this won't, the envelope generator won't, and up here does. There are some exceptions, strangely enough. For some of the sounds, the envelope does work. The presets can be quite nice. Octave coupler is lovely. It adds 1 octave above, so without, with, then finally you have over here vibrato. So that's an oscillation of the pitch. You can control the speed and the depth. Let's start with a very slow and shallow vibrato, but as you turn it up, you can start to hear the pitch wavering. And if you turn the speed up, pitch expand is one more control where you can make the oscillators drift in pitch away from each other. And it's just one of the many reasons why the sounds that come out of it just sound a little bit different and a little bit wonky with that pulse width modulation, the kind of strange soft and expand controls here, this pitch expand over here, which is just gorgeous for creating atonal noises. It means you get such thick, rich sounds out of this synth. It's all perfect if you want to create that kind of sound, that sound of the late 70s, very dark, moody, ominous sound, which I just love. Being a 46-year-old synth, it is hard to make this synth communicate with the rest of your machines. It obviously doesn't have MIDI. It doesn't even have pitch and CV inputs, which means you're kind of stuck. You gotta play it, record it, sample it, and then play it back through a DAW, which is not ideal for me because, as you can see, my keyboard skills are atrocious. Luckily, I found a mod online that will fit MIDI to this synth. It's made by Tabutech. That will give me MIDI on this synth. I made this really because I didn't find very much online. I found a few videos on YouTube demoing it, which I love, but there weren't that many going through it, so I thought I'd make one more. If you enjoy this kind of thing, like a deep deep dive into my synths that I own, let me know, because I've got lots of synths and it would be fun to listen more.